Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Ben.
And this is Blake.
And this is a Nothing New Podcast, episode 11. We are a podcast that emphasizes how doing these small things will help you turn the corner with your health, your business, and every other area in your life that you may seem fit.
Boom.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for episode 11. You know, it's kind of funny, actually, you said the boom thing, because if you haven't gone to our Instagram page and you got to see this video that Blake's friend shot, literally, actually.
Don't get rattled, though.
Don't get rattled. It's not a dragon, but it's close. I'm going to tease you with that. Go check out the Nothing New Instagram page for all that greatness that is.
And make sure you turn the volume up as well. It's worth a listen.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like watching a scary movie in like the light and not in the dark, so things are a little bit different. So check that out as well. But today we're talking about how you crazy. That's today's idea. So Blake, if I were to come into a situation, Blake, you crazy. Your thoughts?
First, I would say, like, what did I do? You know, what was so crazy? Because I would say it's a diss, right? I see it as you're being somewhat rude.
Technically, I probably would be if I was actually calling you crazy. So that would be a legit thing to throw out there. So I mean, I can understand that. But what if I were to tell you that the idea of being crazy was cool? It's like a compliment.
I would say, tell me more. You must explain.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. So, yeah, that's today's topic. It's basically breaking down the idea of being crazy because it's revolutionary. That's a nice word to throw in there, but I think it's something that most people look at in such a negative light when really we should rephrase that and spin it and really kind of highlight the positive aspect of being crazy.
So you're saying crazy I should now treat as a compliment. Anytime I say something, do something, and I'm called crazy.
That's probably a stretch. I'm not talking about like crazy Glenn Close, boiling rabbits. Like that is literally crazy. But I'm talking about like if you say something that just might catch me off guard. Maybe you have an idea, a business idea, or maybe just like, hey, we should go try this. And if I say that's crazy, that's awesome. Like that's a good thing.
So why do you think we, whenever you just called me crazy, I thought of it as a disadvantage. I mean, why do I think that's bad?
We think about what it's associated with. Like I just said, Glenn Close boiling like rabbits, that kind of crazy. So it's out of the box type of thinking in regards to what we're talking about in that context, that if you were to come up and approach me or a group of people with an idea that is different and unique and revolutionary, and you say that and we say you're crazy, it's because you're making us uncomfortable.
Okay. So if I have this great, what do you think about these people with business ideas that they will go to somebody in that field and they'll ask, their opinion, and they say, that's crazy. Are we now saying that that's a good thing?
I definitely think that's a good thing. How could you not? Because all of a sudden, you're making somebody uncomfortable, which then promotes growth. And so you think of that from, a variety of different examples. From a gym, you stress muscle, you do something different, it grows and adapts and changes. I think in the business place or in a personal place, professional, however you want to look at it, anytime that you are introducing something different and unique that challenges the common thinking, that's a positive.
So now we're saying to think crazy means to be opposite.
That would be a good way to look at it. Opposite, 180 degree turn from the norm. And there's business guys out there that have done it. You think of the Richard Bransons of the world. Mm-hmm. I know you got a few examples.
Yeah, let's keep going off of examples. Excuse me. Think about Amazon and what they did. You had the big Barnes and Nobles, these huge stores with all these books there at the location. And creator of Amazon was like, you know what? No, we're going to make it virtual. Basically, I'm not going to have. So he basically shrunk it, which you would think like, okay, that is, the first time he told somebody that story, think about what their reaction was.
Oh, like, yeah, you're crazy. Yeah.
You've also got another good example, especially back to my college days here, is the company Dell.
Dude, you're getting the Dell.
Yeah. He took, this computer and said like, look, you're able to personalize this. And at the time, that was never heard of. People are like, no, you're crazy. Not going to be able to happen. Obviously, he's a success story.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then you've got Netflix. We know what they've done. Bye-bye Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And then I hate to say it because we just talked about how awesome our coffee shop is, but Starbucks still is the leader, right? As of right now, they are the leader. And what do? You used to be able to go in and get like a 25-cent, 50-cent cup of coffee, and all of a sudden now it costs $4 to $6.
Yeah,
it's that experience that Starbucks has been able to create for that. So I thought that was actually a really good example for that. And of course you have the Zappos, which is one of my favorite stories. They do something now, for the listeners that don't know about the company Zappos, they sell shoes. But what they do with new employees is after, I believe it's the first or second week of training, I cannot remember exactly what it is, but they give you the option. They say, hey, look, if you're willing to leave now, if you want to leave now, we're going to go ahead and pay you $2,000 and you're going to leave. And they're also going to pay you for your time that you've already given them for the company. And they call it the quit now bonus. So because basically what they're trying to do is weed those people out, right? I mean, that is crazy if you ask me.
Yeah, it changes the idea. I know another one too. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about, right before Henry Ford had the automobile come out, somebody went and bought a bunch of horses for horse carriages. Like they spent a bunch of money on that. When then somebody who changed the system and changed the idea, did something completely different, came out with a product, and now, I mean, like you'd be hard pressed to find places here in the U.S. that don't have cars, especially in the U.S.
Yep.
Crazy ideas, but those crazy ideas, they're awesome. They're incredible. They promote growth. They promote creativity. And then it's kind of a freeing concept. It's like that we don't have to be restrained by boundaries or commonplace or whatever it might be. We can kind of be free to think and create.
So it's basically these people that are being called crazy that have become these success stories is they don't necessarily like to follow the rules.
That's a good way to look at it.
Think of Travis Pastrana.
Yeah.
Okay, the guy started out, dirt bikes, made a huge name for himself. He was into the X Games stuff. And then all of a sudden one day he says, I'm retiring and I'm going to rally car racing. And, you had a lot of people saying like, okay, yeah, right. This isn't really going to happen. That's a stupid idea. It's crazy. And he made it work. And then all of a sudden one day he says, all right, now I'm done with rally car and I'm going to NASCAR.
Yeah.
And, going back, I'm sure, to his early days, is like, if he had this goal, I'm sure he said this to some people, some of his close friends, and I guarantee you they called him crazy.
I'm glad you actually just said that, because I think when it comes down to it is if you have an idea that you might feel is unique and it's good enough to move on, and you throw that out there to a group or your closest friends, your family, like, hey, I have this idea. What do you guys think? And because it might be so out of the blue or it might be so just different and crazy, they might just right off the bat shut it down. So when it comes down to it, like, do you think it's a good idea to kind of throw these ideas out to people and say, hey, what do you think? Or should you just act?
Well, now I'm thinking it's okay to throw those ideas out, because you do want to have that feedback of like, no, that's not possible. Because guess what? There is a way. You can find a way. If you're passionate enough about your idea and you get some of that feedback saying no, not possible, you should now, I think we should start seeing that as a positive. Like, okay, now let's like really dig deep into this and how can we make it a possibility?
Right. I would almost, to play devil's advocate there, I think sometimes you just kind of have to start it. And you see a lot of these programs that, or these businesses, they create a program. Like we're in the midst of one right now, in the 30-day reclaim. So I can speak, from personal experience here, is that we're going through this program and we started it and we're like, all right, this is the idea that we have, but we kept it pretty quiet because I knew if we did it, either A, some of the feedback we would get might shut us down, and B, it was like it would be too overwhelming to throw it out there. So just started something. And then the cool thing is it started and now we're kind of getting feedback as we go along. So it's a different way to go about it, and we still at least have progress moving forward in the creation of that idea.
And that's a great point. And think about like when you do start these things, and then you meet people like, well, that's not the way we've always done it. Here's how we always do it. If you hear that, I think you're on the right path.
Yeah.
I think you're on the right path, right? Because again, it's something that we're always looking for, like, what's the next best, greatest thing? We don't know it yet.
Right.
We don't know what that is yet until somebody actually does the dirty work, so to say, and finds that new way that we thought was not possible. Take Tesla as another example of like,
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And it's being able to take these things and say, like, it's not to not to dissuade and try and get you out of sharing ideas and doing whatever else, but just knowing that when you throw something out there to a group of people, even if they're like-minded, you're gonna come up against resistance. Resistance isn't necessarily bad. Resistance is an opportunity for growth and just kind of taking a different look at your issue at hand, but just making sure that you don't fall prey to the resistance and stop. That would kind of be my first thing I'd throw out to you.
And I think too, we have to realize that I think it's going to be a lonely process.
Oh, heck first,
yeah. Right? You're going to be alone. So know that. Tell yourself that before you even get started. So that because you're going to be lonely.
Yep.
You're not going to have many people on your side at the start. And it'll be amazing once you do get this great idea out, like all of a sudden, a little bit more interest.
You get that following.
Yep. You start creating that following.
The same thing about, how we kind of went through this podcast. We was like, oh, this is a cool idea. Let's do it. Let's work on it. And realizing that, the only people that listened to it in the very beginning were our moms and girlfriends and wives. Or I should say girlfriend. You have a girlfriend. I have a wife. So there's not multiples in that situation. But just understand, the following, it might start off really small. And it's going to have to take, you keep going and understanding it's going to be lonely because you are the only one that sees the idea in the way that you have. But the cool thing is, once you start to build that idea out and people buy in, you can now see that same thing from different perspectives. You can build on it, make changes, and grow. And
think about it as almost like creating your story. These people that have done these gone through with these wild ideas, think about their story. And I'm like, man, that's a page turner right there, right? And I know myself, I love to read now, but back in the day when I was not a reader, if it wasn't a page turner, I was done. Yep. So I think looking back and telling your story, if you could have that crazy idea in there and you went through with it, that's a great thing. It's a big deal.
And I would even take that a step further to say you attempted the story. And I think that's half the battle because
having the bravery to start.
Because I feel like in every aspect of everything we do, we talk so heavily on vulnerability, but being able to take that step it's a big deal. And not to say you celebrate that in a huge manner and throw a party for yourself, but I started. But you should really take possession of that, own it, and be like, man, I did something cool. I'm moving ahead. I'm progressing something. And then hopefully that turns into a story that's worth reading because you're reading a book right now on Sam Cooke, the guy that created Sam Adams. Obviously, you enjoyed that.
Jim Cooke.
Yep. What did I say, Sam?
Yeah, that's all right.
Sam Cooke, somebody else.
I don't know.
I feel like he is. I'm going to have to do some research. But the story of Sam Cooke is so good, I'm going to write it right now for you and make things up. But you're able to take his story and say that he kind of went on a ledge. And the part that you showed me today was, they made a list of 100 bars they wanted to get into, and they wanted to make sure that they got into all 100 of them. That's nuts. Versus just being if we hit 50%, that's incredible. It takes persistence to be able to take these crazy ideas and this craziness, and however you want to look at it, and that persistence to move forward and make whatever it is you're trying to achieve come true.
And I think another thing we need to look at as well is, just because you don't consider yourself a total expert, a know-it-all of what your idea is, I think you need to look at that as a positive as well, because what little that you do know might be that missing factor that someone else has not thought of. So you almost get you're coming at it at a different vantage point.
And then you become I would say, an expert within that process because you're figuring it out versus somebody that can just take a look at it. You're writing the story versus having somebody come back and look at it. So it's an interesting perspective to be able to create that and then come back at it and say hey, I might not have known everything, but I started it. I got better at it. I learned. And then maybe that piece plugs into somebody else's story from a community. We talked about that last week with James. James had that idea. He plugged it into Matt's idea, and now we have a coffee shop at Avenue. That's pretty incredible.
I say let's not always strive to stay on the safe path. I think we need to journey out, think of what else is out there, go opposite, be opposite, whatever you want to call it, be a little bit crazy, and see what is down that path. If you fail, all right, we come back to the main path and we keep going and we find something new. But I think when you go a little crazy and you go off the path, so to say, I think that's where the amazing and the fun stuff is.
Yeah, bring your machete. For real, like, bring it and cut your own path, because it's you might run into a wall. That's fine. Like Blake said, you come back, you reanalyze, like, all right, I took a wrong turn here. You can look at the process, or you can realize maybe that path wasn't the right one to be on. You can figure it out, but at least you made an attempt at something. And you can even take this from a business. You could take it from whatever it is you want to do, but also look at it from your own personal health and your own personal growth. Because if you stay in the safe zone, guess what? You're going to be a normal person, and normal nowadays is overweight, unhappy, over-medicated, addicted, like all of these other things. Like, that's normal today. And if you're able to take a step out of that, like if you're healthy or you care about what you eat, all of a sudden you're weird. If you are, you exercise, well, that's weird. Why would you do that? So it's go a little crazy, push the boundaries a little bit and challenge common beliefs.
Call me crazy.
You crazy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I'm not even sure how to respond back to that. But like, don't tell like your wife or girlfriend randomly that she's crazy. Like, don't do it like that.
No, we're not saying that.
Yeah, frame it in a positive manner and make sure you're smart enough to know that. Man, there's so many ideas we could take this, and really what I want you guys to look at is to make sure that your walkaway points from here are that you can look at something and be like, is there something different here I could do? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do this the way it's always been done?
I would say start pushing the boundaries. And, they say always think outside the box, but I think these people that are crazy don't necessarily have a box whatsoever. Yeah, it's like this weird shape that nobody's ever even like put a name to. It starts off as a box and then kind of morphs into like this egg oval, and just kind of keeps going through this pentagram of change. Man, where did that come from? That was awesome. I took, I was about to say geography. That is not the right class. So geometry, different thing there. So just kind of focus on that and realize the shape of which you look at a box, it doesn't have to be. Don't do things because that's the way it's always been done. When someone says something, try and think a little bit differently. Be open to thinking differently. If someone presents it says one thing for you to have the idea, but if your husband, wife, friend, business partner, they approach you with an idea, don't just shut it down because it's different. Like, I think that's just as important as having the idea itself. Different, opposite. We're all about it now. Yeah. So cultivate, and then let's crush normal, and then create your own version of normal, because your perspective is going to be different, and your version of normal is different based off of your experiences and your own reality. And so we have to realize that, move forward, grow, change, and cultivate, and really start paying attention to these crazy ideas. Like, you might tell yourself in your own head, like, man, that's crazy, that's not possible. But I think give them a chance and see where they lead you. Yeah. Might work, it might not. But I would ask you this: have you been called crazy lately? Not in this manner, no. And I think if that is your answer, I think that we need to start craving that. Yeah. Craving the call to be called a little crazy. Yeah. And I think if you need inspiration, look none other than Shark Tank. Dude, it's true. I mean, it's incredible because you watch those guys, and and some of them know their idea is a little off, but they show up and they present it, and most of the time they go on there because they know they're not necessarily going to get an offer, but they can still present their idea to the masses, and there's a lot that comes with that. And so I think Shark Tank is a great example. But then even you go look at your local shops, like your local craftsmen, and these guys who create these things that are different, they're unique, and instead of looking at them that's a weird thing, kind of come at it from the perspective of they're being a little crazy and they're pushing the boundary of what we know something to be. I wish I could come up with one of those inventions off of Shark Tank right now off the top of my head that I've seen, because I've been the person sitting there and on the couch watching Shark Tank and been like, when you first hear this product pitch, you're like, are you serious? That's not going to work. And the next thing you know, you see one of these guys, hey, here's some money, let's do it, Yeah. And it's because they see they're able to see that potential when we're not able to see that future. And I think that's what we all need to start really working on, is these ideas do have a possibility. They are possible. Right. And I think it kind of building on what you just said, it takes crazy to see crazy.
And it takes, that's why those guys on Shark Tank are there. I mean, they saw it. They saw that opportunity to do something different. So now they're sitting in there and they're able to offer advice, and they're able to kind of look at certain other ideas that are presented to them and say, oh, okay. So if you want to see crazy and like its best moments, watch kids. Watch the things they do from an imagination perspective. It's mind-blowing to see kind of the things you look at. And as adults, we look at it and we're like, that's weird. But for them, it's normal. Like, where does that die? That dies at some point.
I'll tell you one thing. I wish I had the same imagination as a lot of these, kids that you see. I mean, it's incredible. I think back to when I used to fight my own shadow. I'm like seriously did that. And I'm like, dude, that was actually not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's to build on that, it takes practice, because you think as adults we're out of practice with that. So it might be going to a playground and playing and just kind of exposing yourself to these different ideas, and then by that you can that's essentially practice. And when you practice, it's going to be perfect.
I can tell you I was the best karate kid there was. Had a lot of practice.
You had like Chuck Norris following you around doing all that kind of stuff. I was like dinosaurs. That was my thing.
Karate.
Karate dinosaur. That's crazy.
Which is why I dominated in karate when I was 5. From the practice of the shadow.
There's a fun fact. You know what? You see that? So that's next week's episode.
Great.
Is how Blake's karate-ness helped him be good at karate.
I'll be ready.
Awesome. So wrapping that up, chase crazy. Practice crazy. Be different. Be unique. Open your mind. And then, it's don't shut down other people when they come and approach you with something that's a little off the beaten path.
And remember, when you do pitch that idea to somebody and they say, well, this is the way it's always been done, know that if you're doing it differently, if you're going the opposite direction, that is a positive.
Yeah, don't let that shut you down. Awesome, guys. I had fun with that one. That was unique.
It was different, but
it was
a little crazy at times.
It was a little crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We will see you next week. Go. You know what? I forgot to do this last week. Go to iTunes. And if you deem fit, a 5-star review would be great, not only because you would stroke our ego, but at the same time, the more people that respond and give us reviews, the more people get access to the podcast. So the podcast is able to grow that way. So we would really, really appreciate it if you were to go through and do that for us. And then in turn, we're going to try and keep pumping out some high quality content for you guys that might be deemed a little crazy by society. So
please and thank you.
Please and thank you. We're going to be out of here in 3, 2, 1.
2 dragons.
2 dragons.